So there are various applications of TIR. The first one is mirage. Mirage is a type of optical illusion. Mirage is a type of optical illusion. I think mirage is very common in desert areas. So in Bahrain, this mirage is very should be very common thing. So what happened in mirage is, in mirage, in mirage, it's a type of optical illusion in which it seems like there is water on the road or on the desert. In a desert, it seems like there is some water flowing in the desert or there is some water flowing on the road. The type of optical illusion is known as mirage. There's nothing like water in desert or on road. The type of optical illusion. It seems as there's some water spread over the road or some water is spread over the desert. See what happened in mirage is, okay, before starting mirage, tell me what were the conditions for TIR? Yeah, the first condition was right, Fatima. It was the ray should travel from denser to rarer. There is one more condition for TIR. There's one more condition. And what was it? The angle of incidence should be greater than the critical angle, right? Yes, very good. The angle of incidence should be greater than the critical angle. So what happened in mirage is, say this is ground. This is a tree. So this is a tree on the ground. And this is one observer. See, if you see, you can see the image of tree on the ground. Say you are walking on a road and the temperature is very high, then there are chances that you can see the image of tree on the ground. Now if you see the image of tree on the ground, then your brain will analyze it like some water is spread over the ground and the reflection of tree in the water is that you can see. So this is an optical illusion in which it seems like some water is spread over the ground. See what happens is, on a hot day at the very high temperature in regions which have very high temperature, the temperature at the ground and temperature in the upper layer of air is very different. Means if you move from the ground to the upwards, then temperature decreases. Temperature decreases. On a hot day, the sand or the road is very hot. The temperature of the sand is very high. As you keep on moving upwards, the temperature decreases. The temperature decreases, that means refractive index increases. Refractive index is inversely proportional to temperature. So if temperature increases, that means refractive index, sorry, if temperature is decreasing, that means refractive index is increasing. So as you move up the ground, you're moving upwards from the ground, the temperature is decreasing and refractive index is increasing. So can you tell me if the rays from the tree are coming, these rays are moving from high refractive index to low refractive index or low refractive index to high refractive index? Some rays are coming from the tree. These rays are coming from high to low refractive index or low to high refractive index? Yes, they are moving from high to low refractive index. Or you can say that rays are moving from denser to rarer medium. These rays are going from denser to rarer medium. Rays are going from denser to rarer. Now, if rays are going from denser to rarer, and if at some level the angle of incidence is greater than critical angle. See, these are the different layers of the air. All layers have different temperatures, so all layers have different densities, different refractive index. When the rays are coming from tree to the ground, that means rays are coming from denser to rarer medium. At the interface means these are different layers of the air. If this angle of incidence is greater than the critical angle, then there are chances that this ray gets reflected. There are chances that this ray will get reflected. There will be a TIR. So there are chances that if angle of incidence is greater than critical angle, then this will get reflected. And if these rays enter into the eyes of a person, enters to the eyes of a person, then to the person, this tree, the image of tree will be formed on the ground. And if you see the image of some tree on the ground, then the first thing that comes to your mind is, okay, there is some waters spread over the ground and the image of the tree is on the water itself. But there is no water. It's not the reflection of tree in the water. It's basically the TIR. The TIR thing, rays are coming from the tree. They get totally internally reflected and enter your eyes. So it gives you an illusion that there is some water on the ground, but actually there is no water. This optical illusion is known as TIR. And this happens in the region of very high temperature. And it's very common if you are driving on a highway in a very high temperature. Yeah, it's because of temperature. And it's usually in places which have very high temperature. In India, we observe this mirage in summers only. So if you're moving on a highway and the temperature is very high, then if you observe carefully on the ground, you will feel like there is some water spread over the ground. So actually there is no water. There is just reflection of the sky on the ground, and your brain take it as like the reflection of the sky in the water. So that is an optical illusion, which is mirage. After mirage, the second is the brilliance of diamond. Brilliance of diamond. So the refractive index of diamond is very high. The refractive index of diamond is very high. So the critical angle of diamond, which is sine inverse 1 by n, critical angle is very small. For diamond, critical angle is almost 22 degree. So what happened? Once the light enters the diamond, there are multiple TIRs. Due to multiple TIRs, this light rays cannot escape out of the diamond. So it's like light waves are captured inside the diamond only. So if the light get captured inside a system, then that system will shine. So that is the reason for the brilliance of diamond. I'm repeating it again. Diamond have a high refractive index. High refractive index means low value of critical angle, small critical angle, because critical angle is inversely proportional to refractive index. Small critical angle. And due to the small critical angle, light gets trapped inside the diamond. Due to multiple TIR, once light get enter into the diamond, due to multiple TIR, it's get trapped inside it. It cannot escape diamond. So if the light get trapped inside the system, that system will seem shining. So that is the reason for the brilliance of diamond, the shining of diamond. Then the third application is basically totally reflecting prism. This is important. Totally reflecting prism. See, usually prisms are transparent material. They don't reflect, they refract light rays. But using TIR, you can reflect light rays from a prism. So let's calculate the refractive index of prism. The refractive index of prism is 1.5. You can calculate critical angle for prism. If you calculate critical angle for prism, that is sine inverse 1 by 1.5. So this comes out to be around 40 degree. The critical angle for the prism is around 42 degree. This is the critical angle for prism, around 40 degrees something. So using a prism, you can reflect light rays. Like you can reflect a light ray by 90 degree. Reflecting light ray by 90 degree. Reflecting light ray by 90 degree. So I take a prism. An isosceles prism. This angle is 90 degree. This angle is 45 degree. This angle is 45 degree. So I have chosen this type of prism having one angle equal to 90 degree and two angle of 45 degree each. The critical angle of the prism is 42 degree. Means if you can incident a light ray inside the prism at an angle greater than 42 degree, then it will reflect back. So what I did is I take a light ray and incident this light ray normally. Just tell me, will there be a refraction here? I incident this light ray normally on this face. Just tell me, is there any refraction? No. Light ray will refract only if you incident it at some angle. If you are incident this light ray normally, then it will not refract. It will rather move in a straight line. The light ray is moving in a straight line. So if you incident a light ray normally, then there is no refraction. It will move straight. Normal ray does not refract. This angle is 45 degree. This is 90 degree. You can guess this angle should be 45 degree. Then only the sum of all angle will be 180 degree. So this is 45 degree. Then I draw a normal here. I draw a normal here. This is the normal over this face. And say this angle is 90 degree. This angle is 90 degree. So you can calculate the whole angle is 90 degree. It is 45 degree. Then this is also 45 degree. Yeah, is it clear how this is 45 degree? The whole is 90, this is 45 degree, so this should be 45 degree. Angle of incidence is 45 degree. So see, this is the angle of incidence. And now the rays moving from glass to air means your rays moving from denser to rarer medium. The critical angle is 40 degree, 42 degree, your angle of incidence is 45 degree. I is greater than C now. That means it will undergo TIR. And due to TIR, this ray will move in this direction. This will undergo TIR and will move here. So it will get reflected by 90 degree. Then I take another light ray. Then again it gets reflected by 90 degree. So you can see if you take a prism of angle 45 degree, then you can reflect your light ray by 90 degree due to TIR, simply due to TIR. You can even have image formation. Like say this is your object. This is point A of object. This is point B of object. From point A, you take a ray and this point is A prime. From B, you take another ray and this point is B prime. So you can write here, this is your image. So this was your object and this is your image. So this is how you can reflect your light ray by 90 degree using a prism, just by the use of TIR, total internal reflection. Similarly, you can reflect your light ray by 180 degree. So for 180 degree, we will just put this prism in this way. These are the angles. That's 90 degree. This is 45 degree. This is also 45 degree. So a light ray is moving like this. It is incident on the first face normally, so there is no refraction. This is normal. This is normal. So just like first case, you can check this is 45 degree basically. This is 45 degree. So this is here. Then it will reflect back into the same medium. Another TIR again. See, this is 45 degree, which is greater than the critical angle. So there is one TIR here, another. This angle is again 45 degree. So this is another TIR. So light ray will get reflected by 180 degree. So that's case 2. Reflecting light ray by 180. Now you can take another ray. It goes straight, it gets reflected and come back. So this is your object AB, and this is the inverted image A prime B prime. So using prism, you can reflect your light ray either by 90 degree or by 180 degree. So that's totally reflecting prism. This is application number 4. The optical fibers are basically fibers, wires which carry your signals. Usually the internet wires are optical fibers. So to transfer signal from one place to another, there are various modes. The one is you can use your normal wire through the wire through which current flows, or you can use your optical fiber. Through a normal copper wire, if you try to transfer your signal through a normal copper wire, then there is a significant loss in the strength of the signal due to the resistance of the wire. But if you take an optical fiber, in optical fiber, your signal travel in the form of waves. Your signal travel due to multiple TIR. When I'm saying signal, it could be your internet signal, it could be your voice signal, your audio signal, any signal. If that signal is traveling through an optical fiber, it's a type of wire, Jubena. Optical fiber is a type of wire. So if your signal is traveling through optical fiber, then it travel due to multiple TIR. And in TIR, there is no loss in intensity, no significant loss in intensity. So there is no loss in the strength of your signal. Optical fiber is just a type of fiber. It's just a wire. It's a type of wire which have two types of coatings. One is inner coating, then outer coating. This coating is denser with respect to this. Sorry. This is denser and this coating is rarer. So this is the type of wire that we use to transfer signals, mostly internet signals. So what will happen here when your signal is incident here, you make sure that angle of incidence is greater than critical angle. Then it undergoes TIR and the signal keep on traveling due to multiple TIRs. Now, as we have already discussed that in TIR, there is no significant loss in energy. In fact, there is no loss of energy. So there is no loss in the strength of signal. So you will have better transmission as compared to a normal copper wire. If you try to pass this signal through a normal copper wire, then due to resistance of the wire, there may be a significant loss in the strength of the signal. But instead of your copper wire, if you are using an optical fiber, then your signal will travel in the form of multiple TIR. There would be hardly any loss in the strength of the signal. So the transmission would be more effective in optical fiber. So again, I'm not writing a full paragraph about optical fiber. I will just share a PDF having some applications and some notes about optical fiber. If you can remember, in the last class, we did a numerical on optical fiber. We have done a numerical on this type of fiber, that for what range of angle of incidence system this ray will keep on undergoing TIR. Okay, the next is spherical refracting surface. The next topic is spherical refracting surface. So till now in refraction, the all surfaces that we have considered were plane surfaces, just a flat surface. Either we did Snell's law, or after Snell's law we did apparent depth, or we did glass slab, or we did TIR. In all cases, what we take as plane surface. But now you have to study the spherical surfaces, how refraction occurs at spherical surfaces. So to obtain spherical surfaces, what we do is we take a glass sphere. It's a glass sphere. This is the center of the sphere. This is the radius of the sphere. So what we do is we cut this sphere and we take this portion of the sphere, this much portion of the sphere. We cut the sphere and we take this much portion of the sphere. This portion or the remaining portion, this will act like a spherical refracting surface. We are not doing lens now. Lens is obtained by combination of two different spherical refracting surfaces. So this is one spherical surface. So there are few terms that we will use in contact with spherical refracting surface. The first one is center of curvature. The first is center of curvature. So center of curvature is the center of the sphere of which this surface is a part. The radius of the sphere is known as radius of curvature. This is radius of curvature. So if I take the surface, then here, somewhat here, is the center of the curvature. The center of the surface is known as pole. See, C is the center of curvature, the center of the sphere. You cut a spherical surface from this sphere. The center of this spherical surface is known as pole. The separation between pole and center of curvature is known as R, which is radius of curvature. This is known as radius of curvature. This is known as radius of curvature. The separation between the center of curvature and the pole is known as radius of curvature. Now, you have to decide whether this surface is a concave surface or a convex surface. To decide concave or convex surface, you have to decide where is the rarer and the denser medium. Say the medium here is a denser medium, and I say that the medium here is a rarer medium. This is a denser medium and this is a rarer medium. So towards the rarer medium, the type of surface is convex. It's convex towards the rarer medium. So you will call the surface as convex surface. If a surface is convex towards the rarer medium, then this is convex. If it is concave towards the rarer medium, then that is concave surface. Don't rely on the shape, rely on that rarer medium. Say this is your surface. I call this as the denser medium, and I say this is the rarer medium. This is the center of the surface, pole, radius of curvature. So towards the rarer medium, this is the face towards the rarer medium, and this face is concave. So the surface is concave. You will call this as a concave surface. So if a surface is convex towards the rarer medium, then this is a convex refracting surface. So if surface is convex towards rarer medium, surface is then it is convex refracting surface. Then it is convex refracting surface. If it is concave towards rarer medium, then it is concave refracting surface. So this is how we decide whether your surface is convex or it's concave. Okay, just tell me what type of surface is this? The refractive index here, the refractive index here is 1.2 and refractive index here is 1.3. Can you tell me what type of surface is this? Just look at the rarer medium. This is the rarer medium. The surface towards the rarer medium is concave. So this is a concave refracting surface. So to decide whether your surface is concave or convex, just look at the rarer medium. Just look at the rarer medium. So if it is concave towards the rarer medium, it's a concave surface. If it is convex towards the rarer medium, then this is a convex surface. Next, we will study lens. Lenses are basically the combination of two refracting surfaces. You can combine two concave surfaces, or you can combine two convex surfaces, or you can combine one concave surface and one convex surface to make lens. So lenses are basically the combination of two surfaces. Okay, so after these surfaces, let's do sign convention. In ray optics, we use few sign convention, and those sign convention says all distances, there are few points about the sign convention. All distances are measured from pole. If you have a surface, spherical surface, you will measure all distances from pole. But instead of surface, if you have a lens, then you will measure all distances from optical center for a lens. If you have a surface, then you will measure all distances from pole. But if you have a lens, then you will measure all distances from the optical center. Second point, distances in direction of incident light in direction of incident light are positive and distance in direction opposite to that of light are negative. So all distances which are in the direction of light are considered as positive, and distances which are opposite to the direction of light are considered as negative. For example, say you have the surface. This is pole, and say this is your object. This is your object AB. The distance between object and pole is represented by U, and we call this U as object distance. This is the direction of light. This is the direction in which light is traveling. Now, can you tell me this object distance is positive or negative? This is the direction of light. The direction of light is positive. See, to measure this object distance, you will travel from pole to object. To measure all distances, the starting point should be pole. To measure this U, you will start from pole and then reach the object. If you're traveling from pole to object, you're moving in a direction opposite to that of light. So your object distance will be negative. Take one more example. Say this is your image. I say this is the image AB. This is image, okay? This was object. Now tell me whether this V is positive or negative. This distance V, is it positive or negative? Yes. V is positive. Yes, this is positive. Since you are moving from pole to the image, you are moving in the direction of light. So if you are moving in the direction of light, then all distances are taken as positive. Let's change the type of surface. Huh? This is center of curvature. This is the pole. This is the distance that I call radius of curvature. This is your object AB. This is it. Tell me whether this R is positive or negative. This is object and this is the direction of light. Yes, R is positive. The starting point is pole. You're moving from pole to center of curvature. You're moving in the direction of incident light, which is positive. So yes, your R is positive. See, the next thing. No, once you know the sign convention, the next thing is you have to derive formula for refraction from rarer to denser medium or refraction from denser to rarer medium. So first of all, I'm taking refraction from Ajal. Okay, just give me 1 second. So for a spherical refracting surface, we will derive some relations. Those relations will basically connect the object distance, the image distance, the radius of curvature of the spherical refracting surface, and their refractive indices. So we will need some relations for spherical refracting surface. So relations for spherical refracting surface means you can connect object distance. It's a relation between object distance, image distance, radius of curvature, and refractive indices. So the relation for spherical refracting surfaces means you are deriving a relation which is connecting object distance, image distance, radius of curvature, and refractive indices on both the side of surfaces. There are many approaches to derive this relation. One of the approach which is very common is we divide this into two parts. One is the refraction from rarer to denser. Refraction from rarer to denser. So refraction from rarer to denser means your object is in rarer medium and your image is in denser medium. This means object in rarer medium, image in denser medium. Then you can have relation for refraction from denser to rarer. Refraction from denser to rarer. Denser to rarer means your object is in denser medium and image is in rarer medium. This means your object is in denser medium. Your object is in denser medium and image is in rarer medium. Now, you can further divide it into parts. It could be for a convex surface or it could be for a concave surface. And again, for convex and concave, you can have real or virtual image. Similarly, here you can have real or virtual image. Similarly, here you can have relations for a convex surface or for a concave surface. You can have a real image or a virtual image. Just like here, you can have a real image or a virtual image. So these are the relations for spherical refracting surfaces. So these two types of relations you can derive. The relation that you will derive here is valid for all further cases. The relation that you will derive here is valid for all cases. So we will derive two types of relation, just two type of relation. One for rarer to denser medium, another from denser to rarer. The formula that you would derive here is valid for all cases. The formula that you will derive here is valid for all cases. There is one more approach. In that approach, you can derive just one single formula and that is valid for all cases. But to use that formula is sometime very confusing. So I'm not going to that formula. Not going to that approach. I'm dividing it in rarer to denser and denser to rarer differently. Okay. Next thing. So let's derive one relation from rarer to denser medium. Refraction from rarer to denser medium. You can derive this relation for a convex surface or for a concave surface, for a real image or for a virtual image. Right now I'm deriving for convex surface and real image. I am deriving it for a convex surface and a real image. So you have this, this is N1, this is N2. N2 is greater than N1. Just look at the surface and tell me, is it convex or concave? Don't go on the heading. Just look at the refractive indices and decide. Don't believe the headings, it may be wrong. Just look at the refractive indices and decide whether the surface is convex or a concave surface. Yes, it's because this is rarer. Towards the rarer medium, you have convex, so it's a convex refracting surface. This is the pole. This is the object, and this is the center of curvature. So you have to just draw the ray diagram for refraction from the object. This is the ray. Oh no, I need refraction from rarer to denser medium. So my object should be in rarer medium, right? So I should not draw it like this. I should draw it like this. This is N1. This is N2. It's a convex surface. This is your object. This is the center of curvature. So this is the incident ray. Yeah? This is the incident ray. Incident ray. And this is the normal. So to draw normal on spherical refracting surface, just do one thing. Connect the point at which you want to draw normal to the center of curvature. This is the normal. This is what we call normal. This is the normal on your spherical refracting surface. The normal is a line which is connecting center of curvature to the point. If there is no refraction, then this ray will move in this direction. This is the direction of movement. But when your ray refract from rarer to denser medium, it will bend towards the normal. This will move towards the normal. So this is one ray. You incident a ray here. It get refracted. It's moving from rarer to denser medium. So it will definitely move towards the normal. This is the normal. So it will go here. This is your refracted ray. This is the refracted ray. The second ray is passing through the pole. It's basically incident on the surface normally. So if a ray is incident normally on the surface, it will not undergo any refraction and will travel in a straight line. So these two rays will meet at this point and we call this point as the image. This is the real image because rays are actually meeting over this point. This is incident ray, this is refracted ray, and this is your normal. I should make it as dotted. Huh? So this is your normal. Dotted one is your normal. This is incident ray and this is normal. I call this as angle of incidence. Refracted ray and normal, we call this as the angle of reflection. We call this angle as alpha, this angle as beta, and this angle as gamma. So I should not draw R in this way. I should draw R in this way. So this is alpha, this is beta, this is gamma. Can you tell me what is the name of this distance, this particular distance? This distance. What is this? Pole and object. U, object distance. Name of this distance, pole and image. V, image distance. Pole and center of curvature. R, its radius of curvature. So that's UV and R. Object distance, image distance, and radius of curvature. And say the name of this point is N. So you need a relation between U, V, R, N1 and N2. To derive this relation, we'll start with Snell's law. Use Snell's law. I don't call this as N, call this as M at M. When you apply Snell's law at M, it's easy. Say here the refractive index is N1, angle of incidence is I. Simply write this as N1 sin I. Refractive index is N2, angle is R, so write this as N2 sin R. That is my first equation. Now, the surface that I am taking is a very small surface. Its aperture is small. Aperture of surface is small. If aperture of the surface is small, then we can use an approximation. We can use small angle approximation, which is sin I is approximately equal to I. Sin R is approximately equal to R, small angle approximation. I call these two as equation number 2. Now, if I substitute 2 in 1, then I will get that N1 I is N2 R. That is the equation number 3. N1 I is equal to N2 R. So this is it. That's the equation number 3. There's one more thing. The next task is to convert this I in terms of alpha, beta, and gamma. To convert this I in terms of alpha, beta, and gamma, I'm using this triangle in triangle O, M, and C. O, M, and C. Can you tell me which one is the exterior angle of this triangle? In triangle OMC, which one is the exterior angle? It's a straightforward thing. OMC is the right angle, it's a triangle. Which one is the exterior angle? No. No, Jumena, wrong. Fatma, Froza, OMC is a triangle. Which one is the exterior angle? See, this is the exterior angle. Now you extend this side. This is the angle which is exterior angle. And you must have read the property of triangle that exterior angle is equal to the sum of interior opposite angles. So you can say that this I is equal to alpha plus gamma. This is equation number 4. I is equal to alpha plus gamma, which is equation number 4. This is I. Similarly, I need R. For R, I'm using this triangle IMC. In triangle IMC, tell me which one is the exterior angle in triangle IMC. Look at the diagram. Which one is the exterior angle? IMC. Which is the exterior one? Yes, good Fatma. Gamma is the exterior one. Gamma is equal to R plus beta. So you can write that your R is gamma minus beta. That is my equation number 5. So the first task was to apply Snell's law, get a relation between I and N1. The second task is to convert this I and R in terms of alpha and gamma. So I converted I and R in terms of alpha and gamma. So now we will substitute 4 and 5 in 3. When I substitute 4 and 5 in 3, then I will get N1 I. What is I? I is alpha plus gamma. N2 R. What is R? Gamma minus beta. So I can write this as, okay, this is the thing. That's my equation number 6. Next, what we can do is we can substitute the value of alpha, the value of gamma, and the value of beta. So to get the value of alpha, beta, and gamma, I'm just drawing a normal here. I am putting a normal here. This is the normal n. So we can easily calculate the value of alpha, the value of beta, and the value of gamma. The value of alpha, beta, and gamma. So in triangle OMN, you can say that your tan alpha is approximately equal to alpha, which is equal to Mn by On. I call this as equation number C. Due to small angle approximation, this is equal to Fatma, we are just trying to relate U and V and R with N1 and N2. That's why I'm trying to convert this alpha and gamma in terms of somehow in terms of U and V only. We need a relation between U, V, R, I, N1, not I, U, V, R and N1 and N2. So first of all, I connected I and N1, then I remove I and R in terms of alpha and beta and gamma. Then I'm converting this alpha, beta and gamma in terms of U and V. Tan alpha is Mn by On. On is nothing but U. Similarly, for tan beta, you can use this triangle. Its triangle is MNC. In triangle MNC, tan beta is equal to beta, which is Mn by Ni. See, this is it. It's Mn by Ni is tan beta. We call this as equation number 8. Similarly, we can calculate this gamma, which is Mn by Nc actually. In triangle MNC, not MNC, MNC, not MNC, MNI. This is MNI. I calculated beta now. This is MNI. This is MNI. In triangle MNC, I can calculate gamma. Tan gamma is approximately equal to gamma, which is equal to Mn by Nc, which is equation number 9. So see this triangle MNC, tan gamma is perpendicular upon base, so it's Mn by Nc only. Next, I am substituting this 7, this 8, and this 9 and 6. 7, 8, and 9 and 6. If I substitute all these values here, then this is simply N1, it's Mn by On plus gamma, which is Mn by Ni, which is equal to N2 gamma, which is Mn divided by Ni minus beta. Beta is gamma is Mn by Nc. Beta is Mn by Ni. Mn, 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 Mn will get cancelled out. So you are left with N1, 1 by On, 1 by Nc, N2, 1 by Nc, minus 1 by Ni. Okay, tell me, what is this distance? This much, this will. NO. See, the aperture is small, so you can say that this N is very close to P. Aperture is small, so N and P are close. Aperture is small. It's a lengthy calculation. So N and P are close. They are very close. So you can say that ON is approximately equal to PO.
See this distance. This N2O is approximately equal to P2O. And what is P2O? It's U. Not just U, it's minus U. PO, which is equal to minus of U. Similarly, this distance NC is approximately equal to PC, which is equal to minus of R. This is PC, which is equal to minus of R, not minus R. This is R, so this is plus R. Similarly, Ni is equal to Pi. P to I, image distance, which is plus V. Now, finally, this is equation number 10. These all are equation number 11. Now, let's substitute 11 and 10 as the last step of the calculation. Substitute equation number 11 in equation number 10. When I do this calculation, this is N1. It's 1 by On. What is On? 1 by minus U plus 1 by NC. What is NC? It's R. It's N2. 1 by NC. What is NC? It's R. 1 by Ni. How much is Ni? It's V. Now you can see you are getting a relation between UVR and N1 and N2. So it's N1 by minus U plus N1 by R is N2 by R minus N2 by V. Now take this N2 by V to the left hand side and this R term to the right hand side. You will get N1 by minus U plus N2 by V is N2 by R minus N1 by R. Or you can take 1 by R as common here. So the relation is N1 by minus U plus N2 by V is 1 by R is common. You are left with N2 minus N1. This is it. So this is the formula for a spherical refracting surface. It relates its object distance, image distances, and the refractive indices and radius of curvature. Remember one thing, this formula you will use for refraction from rarer to denser. And while using this relation in numerical, use proper sign convention. See, it's a general formula. If I have derived this for a concave surface, then also I will get the same result. If instead of real image, I am doing it for a virtual image, then again I will get the same result. It's a general formula. So whenever you have a general formula, while using general formula in numerical, you have to use sign convention. In numerical, you will again use sign convention.